Good morning, everybody. It's sunrise, and feels awkward walking with a cell phone, just because I feel like a millennial, right? And that's kind of like accepting the generation as it is and accepting the generational trauma that comes from it. There's so much to say. It's early morning. There's been a lot of kind of rewriting in progress. And that has to do with a lot of finding our own voice. I come from a generation that craves authenticity, especially in a world where we can kind of all sound the same. And so as a result, there's something about myself at times when I hit record, right, to provide messages and to do what I'm doing, in which it just doesn't really feel like it's fully, wholly, and totally me. Because that's still in a process of self-discovery when we're unraveling so much when I am unraveling so much from my own life path. I need to stop speaking from the we, speak from the I. And a part of that is because one part of this role that I've chosen to play here in regards to, energy, healing, assisting, whatever that might be, has also been the role of healing myself. And a part of that has been the transcendental identity thing, the finding my true voice. A lot of us are finding our way outside of heavy indoctrinations regarding to new age spirituality, things like this. And so it's who are we on the other side of this? But then, I recognize too is that even though there's all these really kind of these things that I like to do, right? Like I like to show up, I like to read the tarot, I like to be a healer, I like doing shadow work, I like healing myself, I like getting better, I like self-love, I like the self-care, I like all these things. There's also too this recognition right now that there's a lot more that the world is calling for, right, out of life itself, and that I'm calling for my own individual journey, because it is really about peace and happiness in my own journey. And if the world doesn't want to get there, it's just because it's a lot easier to play in polarity, right? It's so much easier to just play in the ping pong match of polarity and justice. And it's just one of these days sides will choose forgiveness and it will all end. But until then, let's focus on ourselves. And so there's I guess for myself, what I'm getting to here is that lately a lot of very kind of similar messages and themes and threads have been coming through, and two prominent cards that have been showing up a lot for myself lately are the Devil and Seven of Cups. Now, even the discussion of the Devil can bring in worry, because there can be this proposed influence outside of ourselves that is in control or subjugates or usurps, right? It is kind of it's very similar to kind of the bait theory, but Seven of Cups is also everything's possible but not everything's healthy, right? And I guess the overall message here is that I'm recognizing that life right now, because of how uncomfortable life can be at times, it can get so easy to get caught up in distractions, or what I would say is unhealthy coping mechanisms. And I'll say unhealthy for Corey. They might be perfectly fine for others, because the thing about healthy and unhealthy coping mechanisms is, I believe, if we go into a collective study about it, we can have discussions and we can do all the polls and statistics and see what that's like. But it really is a personal journey, and I think it's important, because then we start to redefine health, and health not based upon the biochemical process, but like we're kind of going a little bit more emotional health and a little bit more mental health. Okay. So for instance, right, is like we can become aware, right, that there is a world full of distractions. And I do believe, I don't know enough about Buddhism, but I know that in Buddhist philosophy they talk about these things as regular distractions that are available that can block you from reaching enlightenment. And there's a dual-edged sword on everything, right? So as much as like, for instance, right, like we as creators have a really wonderful opportunity right now to share our voice, to share our truth, to share our authenticity, to share our art online, and to create with other people, and to network, and to crowdfund and raise money and do awesome things. There's also like that sense of like the trap of loneliness and unfulfillment and other things that can occur from social media as well, or like the over engaging or the over consumption, or like the twerk culture and like the over sexualization of ourselves. And I'm not saying don't enjoy the body as you are, but I'm talking about that it's just like everything in moderation and balance. There's such a really refined temperance energy that I run into. In the beginning of my awakening, I was having a really tough time with my addictions. Like I was overcoming really deep, cocaine and heroin addiction from intravenous drug use, which has been 13 years been off of that. Really heavy like mental health stuff going on as well, and all of the chemicals were from that, not just drugs, but all the medicines and the symptoms of medicines, and then the medicines they gave me because of the symptoms. And the message became very clear. There was a day where I was really having a tough time. I went to the ER, and it was like right before I was checking in, I was in a psychosis. I was having a really tough time. And I went up to this Coke machine to get a Coke, because at the time I was drinking a lot of soda. And on it, it said, balance what you eat, drink, and do. And like, it was like, that was my big God moment. It was like, oh shit. I don't want to say Coca-Cola is God, but I think that's kind of like, Coca-Cola has Chinese prophecies built in it. It's like a fortune cookie, right? So that was my fortune cookie moment, was balance what you eat, drink, and do. And it carried with me. And last night it resonated really, really strong with me because of what I'm going through in my journey and the cycles I'm wrapping up. To stay really much so aware of that when it comes to reintegrating back with society, which means when it comes to like coming back to Earth and living a life as a human, right? And I'm talking to us starseeds, indigos, and those that do those kinds of that work where we're very out there, we're astral, or we're multidimensional. We come back to planet Earth and we're like, okay, you know what? I'm going to turn the TV on again. Yeah, I'm going to get social media back again, right? Like I'm going to connect with people again. I'm going to go back in the regular world. Is that like, yeah, there are still things that can pull on us. There are things that can become distractions. There are things that can become too much. And the thing here is that then those things can also become our coping strategies, right? So it's been about getting real, very real and honest with what we want, what we need, because I found that there are times that, like, once again, some people would call it doom scrolling, and I know for myself, I scroll, and I recognize, like, I'm sitting there, and as I'm scrolling and I'm doing this like networking and finding the people and all this stuff, it's like really deep within, it's like it's like the reason I'm doing this is because I'm lonely. Whoa, okay, hold on, let's take a step back here, right? How do we fulfill a sense of loneliness? Well, it's with connecting to others. Then I have to ask myself, is this online way of doing it the most healthy? Well, I think it's one part of navigating the process, but like, what about the local area? Like, right, what about, and the thing is right now what's happening is I'm currently wrapping up my cycles here in Oregon. We're moving in just a few days, and I'm moving out to California, and I'll update that. I'm going to be in Southern California for a while, and I'm excited. But it's been about that what's happening right now is I'm being asked internally to be very clear and honest with what I want out of life and what I need. Because sometimes those are chapters, right? Or those are things and lessons that I'm choosing to not take action on because of fear. So what happens is I stay comfortable. And when I stay comfortable, like, yeah, my nervous system can relax, but there's also something that's like wiggling and stirring and jarring and moving within me that wants to create a path. It wants to do something different, right? So what happens is that when the inner call starts tearing at us, then we start to take action. But it doesn't have to be at the point in which life gets so loud or so hard that it occurs. For instance, I've noticed that the universe has kind of a volume knob in getting my attention, especially when it comes to alignment, it comes to purpose, it comes to the betterment of my reality, it's creating new cycles, it's harmonizing, and sometimes it's a part of a migration effort that aligns me with something where, sometimes there is that greater call, pull, magnetic thing that can occur, right? And we can debate about that all day, whether it's right or wrong, but I know for myself, there's always an inner call. When it comes to the adventurer, the wild explorer, there is that, like, you can feel the shift in that, like, okay, the birdie sings a tune and I answer the call and I allow the soul song to carry me home. But the thing here is that when it comes to what creates more and more depression in my own life is it's not listening to that voice. And so I further hide and I silo and isolate and I recluse because I'm terrified. And what am I terrified of? Like, I'm terrified of actually going and achieving happiness in my journey. And, two of wands, okay? Two of wands speaks that we have to do something to become happy rather than create the happiness from within. That's a part of the polarity war. That's a part of the polarity drama. Is it's like, no, happiness begins from within. But I know for myself, there's something about myself that's aligned action that initiates change, that gives me an opportunity to feel like I'm living a more fulfilling life. Right? It'd be very similar as if we look at, the physical body and nutrients, is sometimes we aren't 100% able to fully give ourselves everything we need or want out of the journey, and we can feel the lack, we can feel the suffocation, we can feel the where we're not getting enough of something, and so then we reach for things to feel better, right? And sometimes what that does is that trains what we would call the unhealthy coping mechanisms, right? So then a part of this is getting real with myself, is going, okay, yeah, so there's this recipe for life, right? I've talked about it. It's part of manifestation. Now, there's a recipe that I've been ignoring or haven't been acknowledging or haven't been able to talk about. And it's because at some level I'm ashamed that this recipe exists, or I'm afraid that this thing can come true. And why is that? It's because there are still traumas, complex traumas, and even beyond labeling it, the nervous system doesn't know what to do to achieve that. So the thought of me even taking action on that creates panic. Well, this is when soft exposure can start to come through. So I love working with exposure therapy, and exposure therapy is facing your fears. But it's not an all or nothing. And some of these things that are happening within myself are the same stories. And some of those stories is, I'm all alone, or it's not safe. Right? I'm all alone, or it's not safe. And then what's really tough is that when there's this really soft interior version of self, which is like it's soft, it's vulnerable, it's highly sensitive, it's feeling everything, it's feeling so much. And then on the outside, what do you see? You see this 6 foot tall, 6'2", bearded, man, like those two might not completely match up, because at some level, I'm not living in a framework and a part of society that understands that vulnerability and that sensitivity, or it might not be openly discussed, especially amongst men, for men. So as a result, though, is because it's like the wobble here is the fact that the framework of the form, the body, has aged, and it's it's a 37-year-old Caucasian male here, but within is like, right, that 6-year-old boy, within is that like 4-year-old child, or within is that like that soul and that starseed, or within is that sensitive, that empath. And it's like, how do we create understanding in a misunderstood world, and how do we train the body and we train the form to be okay in this level of consciousness that the human is holding from within? And I speak to that because right now the body is feeling everything. It's like as more awakens and the body becomes more conscious, that doesn't just mean like aware. It doesn't mean just gnosis and intelligence. It's also like feeling neurons you've never felt before, and feeling nerves you've never felt before, and tendons and aches, and each ache has a story. Like, and each process has a dialogue. And so it's like, and I'm laughing, but it is so much that it is ridiculous. And so, you know, a part of this is like every morning I've been waking up at 3 a.m. Vagus nerve kicking off, legs spasming, right? Because I have this leg kicking thing, processing all this stuff. It's like feeling the fire at the tips of my nerves as my body is still just constantly detoxing the old story and awakening to the new one. And then beyond all of this too is like how much I feel from others as well, which is hard because a part of the protector mechanisms are wanting to get loud and wanting to be very stern and harsh with boundaries. But then there's this greater level of like soft, loving coherence to allow everyone to have their process and to be just as they are, and not to control or to manipulate, right? But to be aware of it. And yet like feeling that, like, you know, for instance, when a loved one is cortisol running through their body and they're talking and it shifts to their field, and then like I have a biochemical reaction and my neurons are doing what theirs are doing, and I go from a place of peace and love to this space of like uptight and tension, that it is, and with it is not just like a simple uptight intention. Within it is a very big conglomerate of details and stories and complexity that continues to refine and simplify, but also can make life harder, especially when it feels like adulting takes a lot more. And so there is a lot of acceptance over the way life is, over the way law is, over the way human law is, and grateful for those that are a part in facilitating in that change. That's not my story, that's my dialogue, not my dialogue. A part of this has been just like, how do I navigate the natural world from this space as the empath and the sensitive who's gone through so much, who's feeling so much, who's healing so much, and is also learning to go through some of this soft exposure to create this new routine to do what he wants to do. As an example, right? Meeting new people, right? And a part of that is like slowly letting go of this design of life path of like hide inside the house, be on the phone all day, only focus on your business and the mission and the goals and whatever that whole spiritual thing was that I was going through, and actually go out and start like meeting people and knowing that like even if I am wounded or within trauma, that I am very capable of loving and being loved. Now, there is going to still be things that I'm learning about myself, right? And a part of that is important, right? As we go out and we start to like stabilize in the new journey, integrate, right? But it's an opportunity to allow the nervous system, to allow the body and allow the form to feel safe in its journey again, right? And so like that's a bigger part of this, is recognizing that, okay, Corey, you're living, you're unhappy. Why? And it's because you made decisions and you made choices in your life path that haven't landed you in the most optimal timeline. And why is that, right? Wounds, traumas, fears, concerns. And so now is the time to take action on those things, but it doesn't have to be overnight. Soft exposure. So a lot of this is creating that routine, and that routine is a very similar thing as like, you know, it's been a really great analogy that it's like, you know, if you want to start going to the gym and you can't just get in there and just start getting it done, it's like first thing you do is get up, show up, park in the parking lot, right? If you don't want to walk in the door, it's okay, go home. Next day, go to the parking lot, go through the front door, right? If that doesn't work, you know, come back and you slowly start increasing your availability to meet this request that's occurring from within for you to start life or to begin life or to do life in a new way. So begin training the body and the central nervous to be okay going through what it's going through. Even for myself, it's tough because not every day can I show up in the most aligned and what I would call, you know, and I guess this has been stereotyped through hierarchy and guru culture to see, right, to see the human and the spiritual human or the conscious human in a certain way. And as a result, I cannot meet those demands or expectations because I have so much human volatility that's still occurring, which means that I have rage, right? I have I have hormones that are still balancing from life of detoxification, and also the fact too is that that my physical body's changing so much. we are very much so. I mean, it's like, I'm someone who doesn't like watching the television, but it's on and it's a part of my environment because my family likes to engage with it. And all we have to do is take a couple of minutes to watch that. And it's like, that's not even a world I want to live in. And that happened to me the other day. The other day, I actually kind of saw what was going on, and I was like, that's the kind of world I don't want to live in. But there is a kind of world that I do want to live in, and that's through my own choice. That's through my own reality stream. That's through my own experience. That's all the things that I can do that are a part of what my day-to-day life is, and that's a part of what it is to kind of go live life to the fullest and to the wholest, to be the best that I can be. But either way, right now, it's like, as everything's in moderation and balance, and as there is this cleansing, this detoxification, this renewal, but also too this emergence and birthing of self, that's a constant process. There's not just one, there's many. And then there's all these awakenings that are occurring, and these awakenings aren't just like spiritual download or intuition. Like, these awakenings are consciousness, awareness of self, and some of them feel like oh shit moments, and many of them are closer together than they are further apart, and they still require a lot of cleansing, of reclaiming of power, reclaiming of love, reclaiming of self. To get to that place of feeling comfortable and stable and aligned. And so a part of that, right, is it's like, yeah, I want to be able to show up every day. I want to be able to do these readings every day. But it's like, I can't, though, because at some level things occur, right? And life occurs. And so then it's like, okay, well, when I can't pick up the cards and shuffle, or when I can't show up for you, but I still want to be able to be creative and be authentic, what do I do? And a part of that is just being okay, being in that space of vulnerability again, being okay, having fun in the process, and knowing that life is a little bit messy, right? Life is messy. My life is messy. I don't want to say that for everyone. Some people's life is very they're clean, they're on top of it, but there's many parts of this journey that feel disorienting because it's flipping a lot of systems and programs on its head. It's unraveling wars and wounds. But it is a kind of a trial and error process in regards to how we find our footing in the walk as ourselves, especially outside of trauma, outside of the labels and diagnoses, and even feeling safe and comfortable in our own life again. I too am. I know I've been through a lot, and my nervous system has been through a lot. My organs have been through a lot, and it's very obvious the places that do not know love in my journey. And I'm talking about organs, like kidneys, liver, gallbladder, my filtration system, which is basically here, filter out all the heroin in my body. Poor body, dude. Oh, body, I treated you like shit for so long. I'm so sorry. But then too is the fact that there are things that are a part of the human condition, and a part of that is connection to the natural world, connecting to trees, connecting to stars, but connecting to others and feeling safe doing that. And connection with others is important, especially when it's really hard to trust people again because of what we've been through, and those protector parts are telling us, hey Corey, hey kid, right? Don't go out there, because every time you do, insert story, and a part of this is reframing all this and the dialogue, and allowing the nervous system to be like, you know what, hey, I see you, I see you're in fear, I see you're in pain, I see you're still hurting, I see you're still grieving. It's okay to be there, right? It's a part of your natural built-in protector pieces in survival mode to get to where you need to go in the easiest way possible, and to not make it messy along the journey. But there's those stubborn points in the journey in which we tried and we failed, and sometimes we failed miserably. And as a result, are remembering what it's like to be okay with life's mistakes, to be okay being just as we are, and it's being okay being divinely human. And a part of that is that we have our very human moments, emotions, contrast, polarity in those emotions, distractions, and then natural engaging with life and play. So, it's just, it's one of those things that it's requiring a lot of fine-tuning right now, especially as so much change is happening. But this change, as it is exciting and it is up-leveling, it does kind of hurt to be a part of, because it requires us to be very honest with ourselves. It requires me to be very honest with myself. And that doesn't mean that I need to share what my hopes and dreams are with the entire world, but it knows that if I want to live a fulfilling life, gotta get up and get it done. And if there's somewhere I want to go and I want to be, I need to do what I can to get there. Because I don't want to get to the end of this life knowing I didn't try. And yet there's also parts of me that are tired of trying and failing. Right? And so I do recognize that, like, I am a byproduct of a generation called the millennials. I'm a byproduct of Western civilization. I'm also a byproduct of soul, and I'm a byproduct of human. And all of that within it is beautiful and loving, but like lovely, but like, what am I going to do with that? And that's the point here for myself, is it's like, here's all this, like, really, like, yeah, Corey, here's all this hardship, here's all these traumas, here's all these things, but like, when it comes to repurposing your power and repurposing this stuff, or purposing your pains and wounds, what are you going to do with it, right? Are you going to be the alchemist of your own life path and turn it into something beautiful? Or are you going to you're just going to turn it into more suffering? So as the inner alchemist and artist and creator continue to, like, align to one another and figure out how this whole thing goes, there's a simple recipe of life within all of us, which is a part of that. Outside of distraction, noise, and opinions of others, what is it that you want to do in your life, and what will it take to get there? And I think that's important, because we also begin listening to the fact that there is, there are lessons and experiences that we can create and put motion into. That's a part of life's journey. And I don't think life is about sitting on a screen all day scrolling. I think life is about going and working with one another, meeting with one another. Now, double-edged sword with everything is that everything is in everything in moderation, right? I'm not going to talk down on the social media generation, because I am in that social media generation. But I refuse now to hide from life and to hide from the physical reality. Ravens are everywhere. Or to hide from the fact that my life isn't over with yet. That's a beautiful thing. Now let's just encourage life to go do and to be, and to allow the soft, subtle differences and influxes to occur, where we can get the nervous system online more to feel comfortable walking as me, right? And recognizing too that it's okay to be vulnerable with others. It's okay, especially, I have parts of me that really do believe I'm all alone. And those are tough ones to face and admit, because that's the way I got life done. It's like, well, no, and a part of that abandonment trauma and believing we're alone is about going out and facing life and meeting others and creating connection and allowing people in, and allowing yourself to grieve the process. Right? And to grieve the process of the protector parts, to grieve the vulnerability, to grieve the heartache, but also to grieve the gamble. And that's what it feels like, is sometimes it can feel like life is a gamble and meeting others is a gamble, because you don't know what's going to occur. But there's something about trusting the process and trusting the tools that we have at our disposal to do the shadow work, to cleanse, to reclaim our light, to reclaim our innocence, to reclaim our heart, to reclaim our love, to reclaim our power, so we can go live life again. And I think that's a part of this, is like, a life outside of trauma is a life worth living. And I'm not quite sure what that is yet, but I know what I need to do to get there. And even though it's uncomfortable and it sucks, and I feel so much, even right now, I just want to break down and cry. Like, it's okay, it'll get done. But there are other factors and variables in the way that are going to occur, which means that we're mortals, right? So the form itself has an expiration date. People have an expiration date, and I know that there are people out there that are doing we're super powerful and we're eternal and we're immortal, and I love you. If that's where you're at, perfect. But me, I'm in the process of watching this occur where some certain things have expiration dates, right? Um, and so, and that's very Scorpio, is to like accept that, accept death, accept Pluto, accept transformation, accept that. But it doesn't mean that we don't live life because of mortality. I think it gives us an opportunity to live just a little bit more. But it's really refusing the fear-driven and fear-torn society and war-torn society and the divisive society, and beginning to accept the loving self, the loving walk, the loving journey, and the soul-line pathway that initiates change, in which we can meet other loving souls and loving people who are going through very similar situations, right? Like, can't hide anymore from each other. We can't hide from our wounds. We can't, like, it's, everything is so visible now, and if your third eye's on or you're an intuitive, it's even more visible. So it's like, let's just be okay with the parts work, be okay with the healing, be okay with the shadow work, and be okay knowing that not everything is forever. But it can be hard on the body, and it can be hard on the traumas of the body, accepting that sometimes starting life and getting life done isn't an easy walk, right? Because sometimes, like, I know for myself, it feels like I'm starting late in life and starting at a time that isn't convenient for me. But I don't think soul is about convenience. I think soul is about learning, and human is about being okay with inconvenient truths, so it can actually get to a space from within its space, within itself, to feel better about its journey, its walk, and its path. Especially being a liberated soul in this experience that knows that there's a life filled with distractions in a very dopamine-driven society, and a cortisol-driven society, and an adrenaline-driven society, in which I can balance and moderate the consumptive levels of those chemicals in my own body, so I can find a way to thrive and to sustain and to not burn out. Because burnout culture is not the way forward. Thriving in moderation is. Right? I love you guys. That's my little update. It's like my little talk, my little gab. I love you all, and with that, I'll see you guys soon. Namaste.